Hey guys, Nutrish here, back with my Fantasy Outlook Week 9. I want to start off by apologizing that this video is coming a day late. I usually record on Tuesday, but unfortunately, my little PC down here was not working yesterday. When I moved it to set up my new desk, as you can see, stuff might look different because I'm in a different position now. Unfortunately, something got knocked loose, so I had to fix it. I had trouble identifying what it was all day, blah, blah, blah. So this week, unfortunately, we're going to have no waiver ads and no trading center. Both are closed for this week. But I wanted to still give you guys a stardom sit-em. I want to apologize that the video is a week late. Also, I did not do so great last week, as you'll see in the recap. So, QBs will speak for itself. My biggest surprises here were Wentz, for sure, and Baker. Carr and Bridgewater didn't do too bad. Bridgewater left with injury. Garoppolo, it's an L, but, you know, he got hurt. But Wentz and Baker really surprised me. I really thought they were going to take advantage of those matchups. And then for my sits, Breeze and Stafford really surprised me versus those defenses. So 4-8 was our record. I do want to give myself credit. I did get the big upsets right about sitting Allen and Lamar. So even though my record was bad, I feel like that was a really good thing to do, because I don't feel like many sources would have told you to do that. Those are the kind of guys you start every week, and I was right about it to sit them. My running back recap, we did pretty okay. It was 6-8. It's not great. I gave myself a little face. I gave myself credit for Carlos Hyde. Let me put that there. DJ Dallas did do good, but then I gave myself the same negative credit for Devontae Freeman because Gallman played and he did well. So that's how the way I'm going to do this. If my stardom sit-em ever has a guy who ends up not playing, I'm just going to put the guy right after him. So I feel like that's the only way I could do it. On this, my biggest surprises were Jamal Williams and probably Le'Veon Bell. I thought he was going to have a big day versus his old team. And then Jamal, I didn't think was going to do that good at all. My wide receiver recap, we did very well. Unfortunately, Edelman and Crowder didn't play. I'm happy about Boyd, Fulgham. And Ayuk was great, huge pick. But the one that really hurt me, Jarvis, I gave myself a little W, but he had a touchdown in the back of the end zone. I don't know how it got reversed. I don't know what happened to get it reversed, but it did. Otherwise, he would have had a big day. My biggest surprises here were Hollywood. He only had one freaking catch, basically, for a touchdown. And then and Darius Slayton, I was surprised he did anything at all. I was surprised the Giants did anything at all. They saved my fantasy team. I won 122 to 120, and he had Tampa Bay D, which only gave him 6 points. I really thought I was done for. For tight ends, we did really bad. Tight ends I've had trouble with all year. I'm trying to get better. 2-8, the record speaks for itself. I really don't know what to say. Really surprised about Jonnu. He's been on a straight decline. And I was also very surprised about Ingram. I was basically surprised about all the Giants. For my defenses, we did well. 4-2. I gave myself anything more than 6 a W, which is perfect. And then for this week, we have our start of the week is Deshaun. Normally, I wouldn't have him in this category, but I feel like Deshaun's been slept on, and he's not really that guy you start every week anymore. So I put him here. I think he's going to have a big week versus Jax. I have Stafford versus Minnesota, Drew Lock versus Atlanta, Cam Newton versus the Jets, Derek Carr versus LAC, and Justin Herbert versus Las Vegas. I think the biggest ones out of these, I think Stafford's going to have a huge day versus that Swiss cheese defense. Cam's going to run all over the Jets. Drew Lock's a good start if you need somebody that's like, you know, you don't have a quarterback this week and he's on the waiver. Derek Carr's going to have a good day versus Chargers. They also have a Swiss cheese D. And Herbert's going to have a big week versus that week D as well. Sit of the week is Nick Mullins. 49ers have been bad. It's not going to get better with Mullins. You might buy into the Mullins hype, but I wouldn't. And then I have Teddy Bridgewater. Bridgewater's been good versus KC. Sit him. Drew Brees, I was wrong about sitting him last week, but I think I'll be right this week. Any Dallas quarterback, no one knows who is it going to be this week. Even if it's Dalton, it's a sit. Nick Foles, sit. And then Ryan Tannehill, even though he's a GOAT, I would sit him versus that second-ranked D. For my running backs, my start of the week is Chase Edmonds. He was really good even before Drake got hurt. With Drake hurt, it's going to get even better. He's going against a weak D when it comes to running, so I would definitely start Edmonds this week. Jackson versus LV, like I said, they're a pretty bad D. Jackson's been good in the passing game. He's going to help Herbert, and Herbert's going to help him. JaMychal Hasty, if you picked up this guy, you're happy. Coleman got hurt again. This guy's the guy, and versus the worst ranked D for running backs. Antonio Gibson, he's going to tear the Giants apart. He didn't last time, and I was shocked, but this time he should. I have Swift versus Minnesota looking for a bounce back. Damian Harris had a big week last week, over 100 yards. I got him here in the start versus the Jets. And then I have Melvin Gordon versus Atlanta and David Johnson versus Jax. I think David Johnson's been pretty good, and I think he's going to have a big week versus that week D. My sit of the week is Dexter Williams. This is the projected starter versus San Fran for Green Bay. I wouldn't trust him. He's a bum. I mean, nobody even knows who he is, so I would not start him. I have him as my sit of the week. He might be tempting because his projection's high. Do not start him. Naheem Hines versus Baltimore. He had a big week, but versus Baltimore, I wouldn't start a running back. Ronald Jones, he's been pooping the bed ever since Fournette got back. I would sit him this week. J.K. Dobbins versus Indy. The hype is back on Dobbins. He had a big week with Ingram out, but Ingram's looking back, and Indy's a great D. I would sit J.K. this week. Wayne Gallman versus Washington. Wayne Gallman's been pretty good, but versus Washington, the Giants are going to have trouble moving the ball. They did last time as well. And then I have Todd Gurley, who's become almost a start every week, but versus Denver, I think you should sit him. I think the Falcons are going to have a tough time. For my wide receivers, if you're lucky enough to hold on to Marvin, then you're happy right now. Galladay's out. I have him as my start of the week. Minnesota's a Swiss cheese defense, as I said, and now Galladay's not there, so Marvin's the number one guy. And then I have Will Fuller versus Jax. I think he's going to have a big week. He's pissed that he didn't get traded. He's trying to raise his value even more. Chase Claypool versus Dallas. I think he's going to have a big week versus that terrible defense. He had a big week last week, and I think he's due for another one. Justin Jefferson versus Detroit. Detroit's been pretty good, surprisingly, versus the past. But I think Jefferson will have a big week. I think Thielen's going to be the guy who has trouble a little bit. I have AB in his freaking debut for the Bucks versus the Saints. I had trouble picking which Buck I should start here, and I was like, you know what? Let's do it. AB, baby. Get him in there. If you got him, rev him up. I'm starting him. I have him in one of my leagues. I have Mike Williams versus LV. Their defense is ranked pretty high versus receivers, but they're not a great defense. I think Herbert's going to connect with him. They've been on fire lately. And then I have Cole Beasley versus the worst wide receiver defense in the league. My sit of the week is Corey Davis. Chicago's really good, and I think this is an attribute to that. And Corey Davis had a really good week last week, but I think he's a sit this week. I got DJ Moore versus KC. He's just been poopy. Darius Slayton versus Washington had a good week last week, but versus Washington, he's going to have a tough time. Renfro versus the Chargers. Renfro's looking like the number one after last week, and I would not start him. CD versus Pitt. CD has been so good, but with that QB, you just can't trust him. And then Hollywood versus Indy. Indy's a great defense. I would not start Hollywood this week. For my tight ends, my start of the week is Rob Gronk. Mr. Gronk right here. He's going against the number 30th defense. He's going to have a good time. Noah Fant again. He was my start of the week last week. This week he's just a start. He's been great versus the worst tight end D in the league. Start him. Evan Ingram, he's been a little better, and the Giants decided to hold on to him, so I would rev him up versus Washington. Jonnu's down. Got to be ready for a bounce-back week. I mean, it's been a few bad weeks now. I have him as a start versus the 27th ranked D, and then TJ Hawkinson as well. My big sit of the week is probably a shock is Mark Andrews. He's going against the number one D. He's such a hot and cold guy. This week I would definitely sit him if you have somebody better. Robert Tonyan, Dalton Schultz, Logan Thomas, and Ross Dwelley. Ross Dwelley's looking like the guy since Kittle got hurt. I would not start him. And same applies for the rest. Tonyan's going against a tough D. Dalton Schultz has the backup throwing to him. And Logan Thomas, I don't think Kyle Allen's good enough for him. For my defenses, target the Steelers, the Texans, the Giants, Patriots, Falcons, and Cardinals. This is obvious. The Steelers is a home run, but they're probably owned already. The Texans are not owned. I would start them because the Jags are going to be without Minshew. Giants, I would start them even though they're not that great. Kyle Allen's not good. They got a pick six off them last time. Patriots, the Jets are just bad. Falcons, they're not a great D, but versus Drew Lock, who I did have as my start of the week. I mean, as one of my starts, I had Drew Lock, but I think overall they're going to hold the Broncos pretty well. And then Cardinals, Tua's bound to make a mistake. He's a young guy. And then kickers, I kind of gave up on kickers for this week. I don't really know who to put in there. Just get Young Ho if he's not already picked up, right? So that's it for this episode. Unfortunately, this episode was short. I'm sorry about the video not getting pushed out sooner. It will be back next week. And hopefully these start of the weeks go better. You feel free to still ask questions. The Trade Center is still open via questions. And the waiver ads is still open via questions too. If you have somebody on your waiver and you're wondering if you should pick them up and they're still there, let me know and I'll answer for you. Anyways, as always, Nutris signing out. I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good one.